In this video, we're going to take a tour of Universal Studios Florida to determine which rides are worth going on. I'll be giving you a general overview of each attraction, where it's located in the park, the intensity of the ride, its average wait time, and whether or not you should do it. With all that said, let's get started at the front of the park. Shortly after entering Universal Studios, you'll be walking straight into Minion Land. On the left, you'll see our first attraction, Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. On this ride, you'll be turned into a minion and have to go through several trials to determine if you're fit to serve Gru. This is a fairly basic simulator ride taking place in a small theater, which makes it perfect for the family. The movement can be a bit jarring, but overall I'd give this a 2 out of 5 on the intensity scale. On average, this ride can get some very long wait times, especially at the beginning of the day. Personally, I'd recommend coming back to this ride later in the evening, as it should be less busy by then. As for whether or not you should go on this ride, I'd say it's up to you. It isn't anything special, but for families and kids especially, it is a solid enough ride. However, if you want an even better Despicable Me attraction with less of a wait, the next ride on this list is for you. VillainCon Minion Blast is the newest ride at Universal Studios, located right across from Minion Mayhem. In this attraction, you'll be trying to become the newest member of the Vicious Six, using your blaster to shoot at various objects along your path. This is a very unique shooting dark ride, with guests having to stand up on a moving walkway similar to those found in the Universal parking garage. That also means you'll have to carry your own blaster, which you'll pick up at the end of the ride's queue. While the accessibility of this ride is a bit complicated, the ride as a whole is very mild, placing it at a 1 out of 5 on the intensity scale. As for the wait time, this ride rarely gets very busy, usually hovering around a 30-minute wait. It can get longer depending on the time you visit, but overall, I'd say the waits are about medium. When it comes to my own recommendation, I'd say you may as well try it out. This ride isn't everyone's cup of tea, but for a 20-minute wait, I see no reason not to see for yourself. Now, let's head over to a much more intense ride. Down the street and behind Despicable Me Minion Mayhem is the imposing Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. On this insane roller coaster, you'll be riding along to a song of your choice, which you can choose on a screen once you get on the ride. Speaking of, once you see that screen, be sure to tap and hold the ride logo to unlock a secret menu of songs. From there, you can enter a 3-digit code to get a unique song not available in the main menu. My personal favorite is 902. Anyways, on the intensity scale, I'd rank this an easy 5 out of 5. This is the most intense ride at the park. Because of that, the line can get pretty long, especially with how often this ride goes down. Still, if you're really committed to riding it, I'd say go for it. It's not an amazing roller coaster in my opinion, but it's certainly the most intense at Universal Studios. Otherwise though, I'd say skip it. This ride is pretty mixed among park guests, with many complaining about how bumpy it is. The time you might waste in line for this takes away from the time you could be waiting for far better rides. It's a decent roller coaster, don't get me wrong, but not necessarily worth the hassle. Next up, we'll be heading over to New York for another fairly basic simulator. Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon is an attraction where guests race against Jimmy Fallon through the streets of New York. Pretty self-explanatory, I know. Like Minion Mayhem, this isn't a very intense ride, with a 2 out of 5 rating on the intensity scale. However, unlike Minion Mayhem, the line for Jimmy Fallon is often pretty short. I've rarely seen this ride with a wait over 20 minutes, although it can happen on occasion. It's a really unique queue as well. Rather than waiting in line like a traditional ride queue, each party gets their own colored card. From there, you just have to wait for the lights to shine your color, and then you can head into the ride itself. There are plenty of games and entertainment offered on the second floor to make your wait more interesting. That unique queue is pretty cool, but the ride itself isn't anything special. Although I personally don't think this attraction is very good, I've gotten a lot of comments from people that do enjoy it. If it's a short wait, you may as well try it out yourself. For anything more than 30 minutes though, I'd recommend skipping it. Heading deeper into New York is my personal favorite ride at the park, Revenge of the Mummy. Here, you'll enter the set of the Mummy films, where a real-life curse has taken over the production. The story is a little convoluted and cheesy, but the ride itself really makes up for it. It is another roller coaster, but it's not quite as intense as Rip Ride Rocket, so I'd put it at a 4 out of 5 in terms of intensity. As for the wait times, typically it can have some of the longest waits in the park. Luckily, if you're willing to split your party, there is a single rider line that's worth a shot. Whatever way you get on it, I'd highly recommend riding this ride. For me, it's the absolute best attraction at Universal Studios and one of my favorite rides in the entire world. If you don't like roller coasters, I'd understand skipping it, but otherwise, it's a must-do. Now, let's head down the streets of New York towards the massive gray building where Transformers The Ride 3D sits. This is a thrilling dark ride where you'll fight to protect the Allspark from the evil Decepticons. If you've been on Spider-Man at Islands of Adventure, this is very similar. Despite it being a dark ride, it is surprisingly intense, really shaking you around throughout the ride. I'd still put it at a 3 out of 5, but it is leaning on a 4. When it comes to wait times, they can typically be pretty long for this attraction. It also has a single rider line that you could take advantage of, but again, be sure to note your party will be separated. While my thoughts on this ride are a bit mixed, I do think it's worth a shot if you're willing. If it's over an hour wait, I'd come back when it's a little less busy. Otherwise though, I'd try it out. Up ahead, we'll reach San Francisco, where one of the most controversial rides in the park sits. Fast and Furious Supercharged is a simulator-style attraction where guests take a ride on the party bus and rush through the streets of California. As for the plot, I honestly couldn't tell you. There's a lot of exposition, but none of it makes sense. It's not the most intense ride out there, but sudden movements and loud noises put it at a 2 for me. The line for this ride can also get pretty long, but often hovers somewhere in the middle. As for my personal recommendation, just don't ride it. It's the worst ride at the park, and a huge disappointment all around. If you're morbidly curious and the line is short, I can't blame you for wanting to try it. Otherwise though, this is a ride you absolutely must skip when you go to Universal Studios. Now, let's head straight into Diagon Alley for one of the most iconic rides at the park. Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts takes guests right into the depths of Gringotts Bank, riding on a minecart as Harry and friends attempt to break out. It's a thrilling combination of roller coaster and dark ride, putting it at a 4 out of 5 on the intensity scale. Since this is a Harry Potter ride, the lines can often get quite long, but it does have a single rider line if you're willing to skip out on most of the incredible queue. However you get there, this is a must-do at Universal Studios. Universal's Harry Potter attractions tend to be the most expensive and well-themed rides at their parks, and this is no exception. I don't prefer it over Revenge of the Mummy, but it's up there in the top 3 of this park. If you're able to, you have to do this ride. Leaving the Wizarding World, we'll turn left and head right on over to Men in Black Alien Attack. Aliens have been let loose across the city, and it's up to you to take them down and save the day. This is a great shooting dark ride with some solid theming and really unique moments. Here's a tip to improve your score. Be sure to hit the red button when you're prompted to right under the giant alien monster. It will give you a huge bonus if timed just right. Anyways, since this is a shooting dark ride, it's not extremely intense, with the exception of a few powerful spins. With that, I'd put it at a 2 out of 5 on the intensity scale. As for the wait times, the lines don't get extremely long for this attraction. Most of the time, it's hovering between 30 to 45 minutes. Finally, for my personal recommendation, I'd say go for it. This is a very fun and engaging ride, and while it may not be my favorite, it grows on me each time I revisit it. It's a great place to stop by at the park. Close by is the one and only Simpsons ride, right in the heart of Springfield, USA. This is an intense simulator attraction where you follow the Simpsons family as they attempt to evade the evil sideshow Bob. The reason I say intense is because this ride is often known for causing motion sickness in guests. Because of that, I'd put it at a 3 out of 5 on the intensity scale, so keep that in mind when you visit. Lines can get pretty long for this ride, but most of the time I'd say they're about average. If it's around the 30-minute mark, I'd say give it a shot. If you know you're prone to motion sickness, maybe skip this one, but otherwise it's a really comedic and fun ride. However, if it's nearing an hour wait, I'd say you should pass. It's a decent ride, but not up there with the best of the best at this resort. Worth a shot, but only if you want to. Right across the street is King and Kodos' Twirl and Hurl, a simple spinning flat ride. This is an easy 1 out of 5 on the intensity scale, which makes it perfect for younger guests. It also usually has a pretty short wait, so it's worth a shot if you want to try it. Being a flat ride, it's nothing special, but it's a nice small offering for the people with younger kids. Last but not least, let's head to the Edge of Kids Zone to discuss E.T. Adventure. This is the only opening day attraction that's still operating at Universal Studios, so some may argue it's a little dated. However, this dark ride is really charming and has a solid group of fans that absolutely adore it. On this dark ride, you'll be returning E.T. to his home planet so he can save the day with his healing touch. The ride gets really weird in the second half, but I think that's part of the charm with this attraction. In terms of intensity, I'd put it all the way down at a 1 out of 5. There's not a whole lot of spinning or shaking going on, just a straightforward dark ride with some solid theming. The line is usually pretty short for this ride, but on busy days it can peak at around 40 minutes. If it's short though, this is a ride you have to do. You might not love it as much as its biggest fans, but this is one of the few rides at Universal Studios with physical theming throughout the entire attraction. It's not anything crazy, but it's a really cute ride that's worth a shot if you're able. Before we go, it's worth noting that a new DreamWorks land will be opening in the park in 2024. Based on current construction, the only additional ride that should be here is a rethemed version of Woody Woodpecker's Nut House Coaster, now themed to trolls. This troller coaster should be fairly low on the intensity scale, making it a great ride for the kids. There hasn't been an exact date announced, but I'd expect this to open by early summer 2024. That's all for Universal Studios. I'll be releasing a separate ride guide on Islands of Adventure very soon, so be sure to subscribe for that or click the video here if it's already been released. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.